Ever get the feeling that Hollywood takes like a perfectly good true story and
No.
just kind of, sands off the edges to make a little, I don't know, cleaner?
Right.
Yeah. Well, today's deep dive, we are adding some serious grit back in.
We are going deep.
We're talking, of course, about The Great Escape.
Of course.
But, not just that iconic image of Steve McQueen on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
We're going way deeper than that.
Behind the scenes.
Uncovering the ingenuity and the sheer guts
Oh, yeah.
that went into this audacious breakout from Stalag Luft III.
And I think what's often lost is that, this wasn't just some impulsive, dash for freedom.
Right.
These prisoners, primarily Allied airmen, they were determined to strike back at the Nazi war machine, even from behind barbed wire.
And they chose one heck of a stage for it.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, picture this. 1943, Stalag Luft III, a camp that the Nazis specifically designed to hold captured airmen.
Specifically.
They called it escape-proof. They really did.
They thought they had it all figured out.
But someone forgot to tell that to Roger Bushell.
You're right, the mastermind.
Mastermind behind this whole thing. Better known by his code name Big X.
Big X.
And Big X wasn't messing around. This was an RAF squadron leader.
Right, an RAF squadron leader.
You mean he knew a thing or two about planning and strategy?
You know how to get things done, that's for sure.
And he envisioned this mass escape. I mean, something so audacious that it would tie up Nazi resources and more importantly, I think, boost morale back home.
Oh, absolutely. Psychological warfare at its finest.
So what does a daring RAF officer do when he's stuck in a supposedly inescapable prison camp?
What do you do?
He rallies 200 men.
200 men?
And starts digging, not one, not two, but 3 tunnels.
3. It's unbelievable.
Codename Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Of course. Gotta love the code names.
Each one was a gamble, with the hope that at least one would reach freedom.
They were putting all their eggs in multiple baskets, so to speak.
Which is smart.
It is smart. And you know what's remarkable to me about this is how they turned these limitations into, like, fuel for innovation.
Necessity, you're right. It's the mother of invention.
It is. We're talking spoons and whatever scraps they could scrounge fashioned into tools.
It's incredible.
Like, take the trouser plan.
Ah, yes.
To dispose of, we're talking tons of dirt here.
They sewed pouches into their trousers.
Ingenious.
And scattered the dirt discreetly during exercise.
Like it was nothing.
Okay, I gotta admit, even knowing the story, that is genius.
It's brilliant.
It's those details that make this so much more than just like a dry history lesson. You're talking about meticulous planning, stretching over months, all under the noses of the guards.
The psychological pressure alone. Right. To be constantly on edge, but also so focused.
And it wasn't just the digging. They needed air down there.
Oh, yeah. It's not like you can open a window.
So they created a pumping system using bed slats and condensed milk tins.
Wow.
For light melted candle wax, which, by the way, doubled as waterproofing for the air hoses.
Multi-purpose.
These weren't just prisoners. These were engineers, problem solvers, driven by this indomitable spirit.
Oh.
Speaking of ingenuity, can we talk about Tom for a second? This tunnel was a masterpiece of engineering.
Oh, yeah. Tom was something else.
Complete with ventilation shafts disguised as stoves and electric lighting powered by the camp's own electrical grid.
They were tapping into the grid.
They even had a workshop down there to repair clothes and forge documents.
It was like a whole other world down there.
It really was. It's mind-blowing, really. They weren't just digging holes in the ground. They were recreating, like, a civilization.
I know, right? Under their noses?
Under the noses of their captors. I can't imagine the level of trust and camaraderie it took to pull something like this off.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And remember, every day, every single day came with this risk of discovery, of their plans being, literally buried by the guards.
Of course.
This wasn't just about freedom at this point.
Right.
It was about refusing to be broken. It was about clinging to hope in the face of, unimaginable adversity.
And that brings us, I think, to the night of the escape, March 24th, 1944.
The night.
Months of planning, years of hoping, it all came down to this. I can only imagine the tension, the anticipation, as these men prepared to make their break for freedom.
It's easy to romanticize it.
Oh, for sure.
But we're talking about traveling through a narrow, dark tunnel.
Yeah.
unsure of what's waiting at the other end.
Of course.
I mean, one wrong move, one noisy floorboard could mean the difference between freedom and capture, or worse.
And as we know, things didn't exactly go to plan. Tunnel Harry, their best hope, came up short. Can you imagine that moment of realization? The sinking feeling that all that work, all that risk, might be for nothing.
I mean, talk about a punch to the gut. What do you do at that point?
Right. What do you do?
They were faced with this gut-wrenching choice. Abandon the escape or press on, knowing that they'd emerge basically into the open.
Right.
Exposed to the searchlights, the guards.
Wow.
Most chose to take their chances, driven by this desperate longing for freedom.
76 men crawling out of that tunnel into the cold night air.
76.
Some had civilian clothes that they'd painstakingly crafted, others clinging to those forged documents and maps. Every step a gamble, every shadow a potential threat.
And think about it. They had hoped to emerge into a clearing, but instead they found themselves in a wooded area, forcing them to make these split-second decisions about their route.
Wow.
And remember, this is Nazi-occupied Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Not exactly a place where you can just, blend in.
Talk about pressure. They had hours, maybe a day at most, before that escape was discovered.
Right. The clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking. And when it was, well, let's just say the Nazis weren't exactly known for their leniency.
No, they were not. The manhunt was swift.
Yeah.
Brutal. Thousands of troops.
Wow.
The Gestapo, local police, all combing the German countryside.
That's unbelievable.
It wasn't just about recapturing escapees at that point. It was about making an example of them.
Of those 76 men who tasted freedom that night, only 3 made it to safety. 3. It's a stark reminder of the incredible risks they took, the sheer determination it took to even attempt such a daring escape.
73 were recaptured.
Right.
And 50 of them, on direct orders from Hitler himself, were executed by the Gestapo.
It's awful.
A horrific war crime that casts this long shadow over this entire event. It's a stark reminder of the brutality of that regime and the human cost of war.
Their sacrifice, though, was not in vain. It highlighted, I think, the importance of international law, particularly the Geneva Convention, which was created in the aftermath of World War II to protect prisoners of war from this kind of inhumane treatment.
Right. The Geneva Convention, while, not always followed, sadly, serves as this vital framework for ensuring a certain standard of humane treatment during wartime. It's a testament to the idea that even in the midst of conflict, there are lines that should never be crossed.
Lines that were tragically crossed in this case. But before we get, too heavy, I want to shift gears for a moment and focus on those who did manage to make it to safety. Because their stories, they're incredible testaments to human resilience.
They are incredible stories.
And ingenuity. So we've talked about, those who were tragically captured and those who so bravely attempted this escape. But out of those 76 men, only 3 ultimately reached safety.
Just 3?
Their stories, they really do. They feel like something, ripped right out of a Hollywood script, which is kind of ironic, given how much the movie glossed over things.
It really highlights that difference between storytelling and reality,
It really does.
Take the case of Per Bergsland and Jens Miller, 2 Norwegians who used a small boat to sail to neutral Sweden, dodging patrols, navigating the open sea.
Wow.
It's really a testament to their courage, their resourcefulness.
It makes you realize, the movie, it only scratched the surface.
Oh, absolutely.
And we can't forget about Bram van der Stok.
Oh, van der Stok.
A Dutch pilot who managed to fly to freedom.
Can you imagine?
Posing as a Luftwaffe pilot.
The audacity.
I know. Commandeered a plane right under the noses of the Germans.
It's unbelievable.
Talk about a daring escape.
Unbelievable.
These successful escapes, they are incredible. But, it's important to remember that they were the exception.
Right. The exception, not the rule.
For every Bergsland, Miller, or van der Stok, there were dozens who faced those tragic consequences.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is. It's a sobering reminder of the human cost of this story and of war in general.
It makes you think about the lasting impact, too, right?
Yeah.
Not just on those who escaped, but on those who were involved in the planning. The ones who helped make it all happen, even if they did make it out themselves.
It's those untold stories.
Those untold stories, exactly.
Their stories are rarely told, but they're just as important, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Those who stayed behind, who took on the risk of supporting their comrades, they're a testament to the power of the human spirit, this collective spirit.
It's amazing.
The Great Escape. It wasn't just about individual acts of courage.
Right.
It was about a shared belief in something bigger than themselves.
Mm.
Hope, defiance. The belief that even in the darkest of times, freedom is worth fighting for.
And that fight for freedom, that spirit of defiance, that's something that, I don't know, it continues to resonate, even today.
Exactly. The Great Escape has become more than, just a historical event. It's this symbol of resilience, of ingenuity, of the power of this human spirit to resist oppression.
It's incredible to think that something that happened in a POW camp, all those years ago, can still hold such power today.
I think it speaks to the universality of those themes.
Yeah.
Themes that transcend time and place, right?
Sure.
We all yearn for freedom.
We all do.
We all admire courage.
Mm-hmm.
We all hope for, a better tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the Great Escape, in all its, complexity, it embodies those aspirations.
It's a good reminder that history isn't just, dates and names in a textbook. It's about real people facing those real challenges and showing us, what we're capable of, both the good and the bad.
It's a reminder that fight for freedom, it's ongoing.
Yeah.
The sacrifices made by, those who came before us, they serve as this call to action, a reminder to never take our own liberty for granted.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to climb out of this deep dive. But not before we leave you with one final thought. The next time you hear someone talk about, the Great Escape, don't just picture that motorcycle jump.
Right.
Remember the ingenuity, the sacrifice, and the enduring power of the human spirit, even in the face of, unimaginable adversity.
And remember those who resisted.
Yes.
In ways big and small.
Yes.
Whose stories might not be in the history books, but who played this vital role in the fight for freedom.
Yes.
Their courage, too, deserves to be remembered.
Couldn't agree more. This has been The Deep Dive, reminding you to never stop questioning, never stop exploring, and to always, always dig deeper.